Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Authoritas Tea Time SEO. I'm SEO Joe Blogs, and I'm also here joined by Carrie Shepherd. Has everyone got their tea for today? Very good. So we have some wonderful speakers on our show again today. They were taking part in Tea Time SEO earlier in the series. We have Chris, Dixon, and Maret, and they're all talking about internal linking and content structure. So if you're enjoying the show, please like our video and subscribe to our YouTube channel and come back again on Thursday when we have some more. So here at Authoritas, we have put on the Tea Time SEO to encourage everyone to take that break. People that are working from home may not be doing that. You might be sitting down at your desk. We want people to connect with others and also learn something new. And at Authoritas, we're also an SEO platform. We help generate traffic that converts. And actually, we have a brand new feature called Visibility Explorer. And this lets you view your competitors, see where you're appearing in the SERPs, and also you can download up to 500,000 keywords for free. So just go to authoritas.com and give it a go. If you have any questions, contact myself or Carrie, or we also have Lawrence that has joined us too. So I'm going to pass over to Chris, and then our speakers will be introducing themselves. Thank you.
Cool, thanks, Joe, and thanks for having me here again. These are always pretty fun to get into, and today's subject is a really interesting one. But my name is Chris Green. I'm head of marketing innovation at Footprint Digital, which is kind of a fancy way of saying that I do pretty much a bit of everything. But I get to look a bit smart at doing it. I'm also a certified trainer for Systrix, an on-call ambassador, and I do a lot of work with a lot of tool providers because I'm a massive geek in the area, basically. Been in the industry for about 10 years, spoke at a lot of events, done a lot of live streams, haven't we all these days, but also gotten on board with quite a lot of mad science experiments in the past couple of years, which have been pretty fun. And then the final shout out is something I've been doing recently to help out businesses during lockdown, helping smallbiz.co.uk. If you're kind of people been left stranded by COVID and want to get online, that's kind of the portal and the way and means to do it. I've helped about 20 or 30 businesses in the time, and yeah, quite a rewarding, if slightly time-sapping thing to do, but that's been pretty fun. So that's me.
Hi guys, I'm Dixon Jones. Nowadays I'm the CEO of something called inlinks.net, and I've managed to spell inlinks with a capital I in the middle, which is an internal links optimization tool and schema tool. I'm probably also known for my brand ambassadorial role at Majestic. I used to be the CMO there, and that's a big internal, that's a big link engine. So basically it looks at links and is one of the biggest databases on the internet, actually. And I go way back to Chris Green is very, very young, to be honest with you. I've been in the industry for just over 20 years now, and I founded my first agency back in 1999, which I'm no longer part of in any way, shape or form. So that's me.
Hello, my name is Maret. I've not been in the industry as long as either Chris or Dixon, but I have founded my own company called Mobe Digital, and I'm essentially an inbound marketing and SEO freelancer. My background is both as an in-house marketer, where I did a bit of everything, which includes online, offline, internal events, and much more, as well as working at digital agencies in the past. And basically, the reason why I set up as a freelancer like this is because I love a good story, and I help brands tell their story, making sure that they can get found on search engines and then be able to engage with their users and their leads. Since lockdown, I've started helping out the Village Volunteering Group with an email newsletter which goes out every week, with highlights that include a T-Rex, a rainbow postman, and a stone snake. That's me.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much. Great to see those initiatives that you're all doing, especially as part of this, during this pandemic, or once in a well, no one's ever seen this type of thing happen again. I just wanted to say a big hello to everyone that's joined us, Simon, Andy, Azim, and Arid, Jeff, and Christina, Orit, and Monse, and Anna. So thank you all for joining. I'm going to pass over to the speakers who will be sharing their very insightful tips about internal linking and content structure. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat, and Carrie will be managing those questions later, and we'll get them answered for you. So over to you.
There we go. Thank you. So internal linking. Wow. So I think for me, the first point and the first top tip is more of a statement, I guess, than anything, but I think it's a pretty conscious one. And I think our intuition is pretty poor as a judge of the impacts of internal linking changes on large websites and as a whole. It's a bit of a sweeping generalization, but I'd argue that a lot of us don't quite know enough about how it impacts it, myself included on that. I'm not saying that I know all the answers there, but I think the complex interplay of elements on a website, particularly like a large e-com or a large publisher, really understanding what are the ramifications of your changes going to be, it can take time to feel that, and you may be causing damage to your website by altering your linking structure without being 100% conscious of it. So that's kind of really drove me to start experimenting a bit more heavily in this area. It's not necessarily something that people haven't done historically, but actually generating copies of a website and running internal linking changes in a sandboxing environment and using kind of one of the various tools out there to create a proxy and understand, okay, what is this change likely to do? And one of those things running into that I've found, and again, is almost easy to assume that people kind of understand this, is strong internal linking optimization. It's kind of this interplay between, how do you decrease or reduce the depth of pages through greater internal linking, but without falling foul of adding more links isn't always making the situation better. And very often what you can do is you can often dilute the value that flows around by adding loads more links, by feeling, well, let's add links to these destinations, even if they're not necessarily the most kind of critical. And that's one of the things in a sort of study I've worked on recently, which I'm more than happy to chat about afterwards if people want to, is on blogs and publishing websites, typical forms of internal linking that you might add, extra links to taxonomies, tags, archives, on large websites, particularly very deep websites, adding that kind of internal linking will bring the pages higher in the structure very, very quickly. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the page rank that flows is distributed in the way you want it. So it's just a bit of a cautionary, is making sure that you add the links where it needs to be. And I think largely from the research or what I've been looking at is, oh, my slides disappeared. Lovely. Is that actually, if you do want a form of internal linking that's likely to work well, and I'm being cautious because I've only ran these sort of tests in this way on one particular type of website, is related posts, pages and products do feel like they're the best start if you want to improve your internal linking health as an off. And realistically, what you need to be doing is making sure that working out how pages interconnect and relate fuels your internal linking plan. So you're not linking arbitrarily, you're linking because it makes sense for that link to exist in some way. But also I think that, contextual links and links that operate in a space where they need to do tend to work the best from that. And again, in these simulations, simulating internal page rank flow, they perform very well. They reduce the depth of the content without sacrificing the page rank or the in-rank flow in this particular study that got to that. So choose your internal linking wisely, but don't forget about it and don't act too rashly. They are my kind of 3 tips in a nutshell, and that's over to Dixon.
Okay. So if you can press 1, okay, and press one more button, please, Carrie. Okay. So my first tip, really, I mean, ever since I've been involved in links, kind of internal linking has been rather high on my list of things I think about every morning. And the one thing, the whole reason that we kind of started in links is because of this move towards semantic entity search, entity-based analysis. And I would urge you to think and link internally by topic, not by keyword. I think that one of the things that some of the old WordPress tools did was exact match linking all over the site, and there was no real context. It just sort of, you chose a word and linked them together, but there wasn't necessarily context. So just to emphasize that, the Google search team is now headed up by two guys that have come from the AI team at Google. So, they're now, one of which is on the paid side. But anyway, but the whole thing here is that they're moving over to this idea of topics, and that comes out. Cindy Crum did something on Mobile Moxie recently, which I thought was really, really good. Which talks about how entities are feeding everything now within Google. Your Google Discover on your Android phone, if you've got and stuff. Everything is starting to get fed into this entity thing. So if you can build entities and topics and then link by topics rather than keywords, you'll be in a better place mentally. So that brings us on to the second point, if we can. Bring on the next one, please, Kerry. The next one is that you then have a tendency, especially in niche websites, we tend to talk about the same topic a lot. And that's because we want to be knowledge leaders in that particular topic. But that leads to a problem. And the best thing I can describe it is if you've ever been, watched Highlander, one of my favorite films, there can be only one. And the truth of the matter is that even if you just do keyword that you'd like to rank for here, site:/yoursite.com, there's still got to be one page at the top of that list. So they're all your site, they're all yours, and they may all be about search engine optimization or maps of restaurants in London or whatever it may be. But there's still going to be one at the top for each keyword. So I think the second thing I would say is that as you increase your knowledge around a particular subject and demonstrate your knowledge around a particular subject, you have a tendency to create cannibalization because you start writing about the same topic twice. And this is why you should really spend a lot of time associating one page to one topic. Decide which one is going to be the right one, because that's when you really get point number one, the ability to link all of your other mentions of that topic. When you've talked to them around, you always refer them back to the one, so that Google is explicitly given a clear indication of which one is the right page and the authority for any particular topic, and make that topic association totally clear. The way that we do it at Inlinks is to link everything to a Wikipedia page and say this is about this Wikipedia article. And if you haven't got a Wikipedia article, it's not an entity as far as we're concerned. It might be, but anyway. So reducing the cannibalization by internally linking any other mentions of your topics to the one that should be the one that should rank for that topic. Okay, my third one, please. Okay, the third one actually is something that I think is particularly useful, and I think is as yet well underplayed by SEOs. So Google invited me out to Geneva in just not me and a couple of hundred other people, but anyway, to meet up with Martin Splitt and John Mueller and a bunch of other people, and they were talking about things that they wanted to talk about. But Martin Splitt is the JavaScript guru at Google, and they have really got the hang of JavaScript now. Basically, they are effectively only passing your data after they've already run the browser side stuff, with a few exceptions, but pretty much they're kind of taking your content, running it as a browser, and then passing it with the browser into their tools. So it's got all the JavaScript there. Now that's really interesting because it means that SEOs don't have to go and talk to the web developers every single time that they need to try and sort out an internal link thing. So that's what Inlinks has been able to do is say, right, you put one line of JavaScript on the site, and everything can then be controlled from the JavaScript side. So you can inject links into there, you can inject schema into there. There's a huge amount that you can do as an SEO now with JavaScript that we couldn't do before Google understood JavaScript. It was pointless doing it before JavaScript. So Google's now very happy with JavaScript, so you can use that to affect your JavaScript links. So those are my 3 tips. Over to you, Maret. And don't forget you're on mute.
Thank you. The story of my life. basically, my top tips, I just want to start with what they said. Yeah, I completely agree with Chris that context and relevancy is super important when thinking about internal linking. And I don't actually know if you know this, Dixon, but I've been trying out InLinks a little bit myself. And yeah, it looks like a really good tool to use. So let me just continue that plug there for a minute. Yeah, it's really cool. It really helps mapping out topics to your website, if that makes sense. So yeah, these guys have already covered a lot. So I want to essentially share 3 or 4 really actionable tips with you. So check your broken links, check your follow tags, and a couple of bonus tips. So if we go to the next slide, then the first thing to check when you want to make sure that your internal linking infrastructure is right is checking for broken links. Now, Google crawls URLs as they are found. So having broken internal links, internal redirects, or redirect chains basically won't really help you get your pages ranked higher, at least. And it also is not a very good experience for people visiting your website, as it will take longer to load, or they end up somewhere that they didn't expect. So as you, what you do is essentially use your crawler of choice in order to get a list of broken internal links and get them fixed. This is something that as a website owner or marketing manager, you have control over. So this is absolutely worth spending time on so that the visitors to your website, as well as search engines, get the easiest time possible understanding what's going on. In doing so, you will also come across internal link redirects or redirect chains. And this is, to be fair, a relatively common problem. Pages often get changed or moved, but it's worth checking this regularly, again, to make the experience for both users and search engines better. Orphan pages, that's a bit more difficult because essentially you need, for search engines and often crawlers, you need a link to understand that the page is there. So how can you find them when they're sort of floating in space with no link to them? There's a couple of things that you can do, though. For example, using your Google Analytics history to find any URL which has ever received traffic, exporting those and uploading them to your crawler of choice. The same for Search Console, just to review any URL which has ever had impressions. And you can use your sitemap as well as your own lists. So, for example, log files, or if you have an entire database of every URL on your website, I mean, you might have too much time on your hand, but equally, it's very useful if you want to find orphan pages. So for me, sorry, if we can go back one, sorry, I know I'm waffling, but what I just want to say is that for these 3, Sitebulb is mega useful. Basically, their audit overview shows you hints which highlight any sort of important issues that need to be resolved. And the only thing to keep in mind is when you do find orphan pages is to check whether they are orphaned because they might not need to be there anymore. So a crawler might be able to find pages that are just offline. So you can do that by first checking how many links are pointing to each page, and then drilling down into the data and adding a column to show the status code of that page to make sure that it should be shown. Okay, now I'm ready to go to the next slide. So check your follow tags. I have to do a really quick shout out to Jerry White here, who summarized it really well in conversation this morning. But basically, there is generally no real need to add a no follow tag to your internal links, unless and there is always an unless. If there are areas on your website that you don't want to be indexed, like a member area or a login area, or links that have parameters, you can add a no follow tag to those, and that is actually really useful. And finally, I have a couple of bonus tips on the next slide, which are kind of in line, to be fair, with what Chris was saying. So using anchor text or image alt text helps to provide content. Like Chris said, that's not just useful for users, but also it helps search engines understand what the page is about. Also, what we've learned in the past is that actually anchor text is allowed to be a bit longer. We've had people like John Mueller confirm that that is fine, and that it makes more sense to have a longer anchor text than just a really strange phrase that you want that page to rank for. And that kind of leads on to the final tip, which is don't worry too much about adding internal links as long as they make sense naturally. And final, would I be a real SEO if I didn't add any John Mueller tweets to my slide deck? I don't think so. So I got one for you from today, which just is John Mueller confirming that you don't have to worry about no follow tags for internal linking if it is for relevant articles or pages on the website. And that is me.
Great. Thank you very much, Maret, for all those. And thank you to Chris and Dixon. I realize Chris is a hard stop, so we'll ask some questions to Chris first before he goes.
No, the difficult ones have to be reserved for everyone else, surely.
Yeah, I'll pass over to Carrie.
Great, thank you, Joe. So first question we have is from Simon. Is there a difference between navigation links to a page versus links in the content?
I'll go if you don't, Chris.
I was just waiting for that. Go on.
Okay, so for me, there is. I think that the problem with navigation links is that they don't have context around them. So if you've got, a link about Edinburgh pages, a link about Birmingham pages, and a link about London pages, then you've just got Edinburgh, London, Birmingham with no context. So that's not as useful and not as good for a machine learning algorithm to learn as the context within a page. So you sit there and say, right, the train from London to Birmingham is, and then you've got the London and the Birmingham pages links. There's a lot more context in that kind of idea. So it's much more likely that one's in the body of the text. I say much more likely from my brain, not necessarily from any instruction I've been given from Google, but in my brain, and also, the way that InLinks looks at it, we don't look at the navigational links. Of course, you should have a sensible navigational structure, but the context comes in the meaning around those words. And as we get towards natural language processing, understanding the concepts and entities within sentences and stuff, those links are now within sentences, and those sentences have meaning. So therefore, more context is there. So it does a better job. That's my answer.
I think to sort of jump in on the end of that, I think the issue potentially with navigation is that if you put all of the links in the menu, it's somehow the job done. And I think obviously the context point that Dick's making is really important, but the other side is every page on the website can't be as important as every other page. Or if you try and create the environment where that is the case, then you risk losing out on really heroing out the pages that you really want to. Obviously, the homepage is a great place to do that and the context on there, but even 1 or 2 levels deep, the linking between content makes a real difference. And certainly, if you're kind of running any kind of model like PageRank and you're beginning to test that, you start adding sort of site-wide linking elements, you start to notice that the overall flow begins to drop. Whether that's exactly what Google uses or not, well, it probably doesn't, not in that way, but it's quite good at illustrating doing everything en masse. Actually, I'll cut to the chase. Doing it lazily, anything internal linking you think you've solved quickly and easily, probably isn't as effective as it could be.
Well, actually, yeah, jumping on from what you're saying, Chris, the same thing that happens is, for example, with sitemaps. Like, yeah, sure, you have your URLs in a sitemap, but that isn't the only place where your links should live.
Absolutely. I am partial to an HTML sitemap though, but that might be more of nostalgia than
yeah, like it's traditional, isn't it? It's not your single source of here.
Definitely.
Great, thank you. And Andy kind of wanted to add on to that question. What about adding sub sidebar menu for related pages, or better linked from the content?
I mean, I'd say do it where it makes sense, but with all of the above attached, in that, where we've got mentioning e-commerce in there. I think e-com tends to bend or break a lot of the rules when we say don't add lots and more as anything, but the depth, the breadth of content can necessitate it. I think do it where it makes sense and where it aids kind of navigation. But the other point is, if you're adding sidebars and secondary navigation that helps the flow, make sure that your kind of breadcrumb or your path back up is just as clear, and that kind of helps that work out. But again, some of those links just aren't going to make it in the menu. And I think as long as everyone's kind of clear and happy with that from the word go, that kind of helps, and it stops the menu becoming just an incomprehensible mess that's really hard to use as well.
Yeah, I'm just a big fan of body text content and concepts. I mean, in InLinks, we first put everything into entities, so we know, and we only look at the body, and Majestic as well. It kind of looks at things in chunks and segments things in chunks on the body of the page. And I think that you can't do better than body text links in sentences. I mean, any other workaround's great, but as Chris says, if it's a short, or Maret, I'm sorry, I can't remember who said it, but if it's a shortcut, it probably is a shortcut. That said, that we're all about trying to make a shortcut, but to me, as soon as it's got a pattern and a structure, then it's not really as contextually relevant. So it hasn't got meaning in context.
And actually, can I actually ask a question? I'm curious to see, Dixon and Chris, what you guys think of this. Sort of coming back to the menu. To me, the menu is almost like an overview, right? So, for example, if you have five main topics, they will sit in the main menu, but from those pages you use the body and internal links to further Q&A pages or FAQ pages or blogs that are related to the topic, but might not be top of mind or broad enough to sit in the menu.
Yeah, so the menu is designed to take semantically distant concepts, so you can connect to the distant concepts. So it's like going up in a helicopter and then going down in a section, isn't it? So those navigational elements are as distant from each other as you can get within the website. I mean, your website is quite semantically close anyway. But whereas the context where you're writing about things, then that pulls it back into that sort of drill down view. So that's the difference between those two different types of links. And I think there is a difference, and I think it's a very real difference. If I was writing Google's reasonable surfer and internal link algorithm, then I would be certainly considering that.
Can I make one more slightly random tip and then drop off? Sorry, because duty calls. But I think if I could give anyone a tip, kind of planning internal linking and actually working out how to do this properly, is actually really planning it. And it comes back to Dixon's point about cannibalization and content that's competing. You need to have an idea of where your internal links need to go. Internal links are great, but having competing and conflicting signals internally can be undoing a lot of the hard work. And most publishers that I work with can benefit quite a lot just by having a consistent internal linking structure. And I think there are a lot of tools and plugins out there that make it not painless, because internal linking is horrible, but a lot less painless. And I would certainly recommend that people jump on that where they can. But that has to be it from me, I'm afraid.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Chris, for joining us today. Great tips.
Thanks for having me.
See you soon.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your stream. Make them hard questions, everyone. Right, catch you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. We have another question from Orit. If the landing page you want to promote is very relevant to other pages, would you link that page from all relevant pages or draw a limit at some point?
Okay, well, I'd link it from where it talks about that landing page. So an example, I suppose, might be, okay, if you've got a page on hotels and basically everything is a hotel, then yeah, I think you should probably talk about link all of those pages back to a hotel page. But every single page doesn't really help. At that point, probably you do want a navigational thing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. If it's every page, then I suppose that is that page should be at the menu so that it can be reached from any page, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, because we've got I've just had that problem in my own head because I've just been writing about internal link optimization. I've got internal link guide. I've got so I've got lots of things about internal linking, and yes, absolutely, I've got to choose that cannibalization problem, and I've got to say, well, is my internal link guide, or is it my internal link optimization page, or is it what is an internal link? Well, which one is about internal links? And I've got to make that decision. But then every single other one of those should link not just on the page, but in the sentence at which you talk about internal links should link back. It's got to be down at the section level, in my opinion. It's much more valuable at that point anyway. I
agree, and it just reiterates the point of relevancy, doesn't it? Like if it's relevant, then link to it. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Well, we have one last question. So you talked about internal linking. You said link to the topic. What if the site has now main topic? Oh, sorry.
Has no main topic?
Yeah, I think it's supposed to say no main topic. They just have loads of blog posts with similar keywords they want to rank for.
Do you want to go first, Maret?
I am actually going to go a step away from internal linking, though, and say it's probably worth doing a content audit if that's the case, and include in that content audit which blogs are linking to each other and where they should be linking.
And what about? Sorry, just on that, you said content audit. Then would you say then look at the pages that maybe are ranking highest for those terms and then focus on those ones?
Yeah, definitely have a look at which ones rank higher, because obviously they already have that visibility. But equally, is it relevant? Is that there's more often than not there is pages that rank even though it's not really the key page should be ranking for, and I think relevancy is more important than just does it rank higher, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if you've got a lot of content that's sort of trying to rank for very similar types of keywords, then you may well have content that is trying to rank for the same thing. So you've got to get to the sort of the modern way in which a search engine is thinking about things in terms of knowledge graphs, and it's saying right, what thing is this about? What thing is that about? And you should be able to link that to an authoritative place about that thing. So that's why Wikipedia comes in very useful. It might not be Wikipedia, it might be a IMDb page, or so if you're going to talk about all the stars from a particular movie, then the IMDb pages might be really, really important. But I think you have to understand that if you're going to just try and optimize for different variations of the same thing, all you've actually done is de-optimized your whole site for that one thing, because you've now got cannibalization galore. Google doesn't know which one of those pages. They know they're all the same thing. It don't know which one is the one that's important. So Google says, well, I'll just give half and half, and therefore you haven't optimized for anything. So that's cannibalization.
Great, thank you. Well, those are all the questions we have time for today. Thank you both for joining, and I'll hand back over to Joe.
Can I do a super quick plug for Turn Digi next week?
Of course.
Oh, yes, of course.
So quite relevant to internal linking. I will be talking about topic clusters and why an internal linking infrastructure is so important next week at Turn Digi. So tune in.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Yes, from 11 a.m. British Summer Time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dixon. Thank you very much, Maret and Chris, also for joining us today, coming back to join us. And we'll be here again at 4 p.m. this Thursday, where we're going to be talking about competitive analysis, how to get ahead in the SERPs. We have Andrew Chadwick, Francesco Baldini, and Shane Barker joining us this Thursday at 4 p.m. So make sure you join and tune in And we'll be running this Tea Time SEO throughout July on Thursdays. So if you want to speak on and be basically where Maret, Chris, and Dixon are, please contact Carrie and get in touch. We'll be really happy to hear from you. We've got some topics lined up, so do get in touch. So see you all then at 4 p.m. on Thursday. Bring your tea. Maybe you've got some cake as well you can share.
Sounds good.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.